In the name of Lord Jesus Christ, I speak here. Now we thank God we come to chapter 21, right? Chapter 21 again is a psalm written by David. Okay, written by David. Now, again, you see that this psalm is about how God, has granted him salvation. I think for the past few chapters that we have read, we have gone through, one of the key ideas is about God's salvation. Right? It's God's salvation. Right? Now we understand that, for David to talk so much about God's salvation is because of, the circumstances that he was in at the time. Okay, now I just want to first divide the chapter, verse 1 to verse 2, Selah at the back, and then verse 3 to verse 7, and then verse 8 all the way to verse 12, and verse 13 is like a conclusion. Right? Now, okay, we go through the chapter. Now, here it begins by talking about the king. Yeah. Now, the previous chapter, we understand that in verse 6, he's talking about his anointed, God's anointed. Obviously, is King David himself. And, some may even say that, by extension, it also refers to Jesus Christ when he was in this world. And I guess that line of thinking is perfectly correct. So it's fine, because David and Jesus in most cases cannot be separated. Verses about David that can also be applied to Jesus Christ as well. Right. Now, I think when we come to chapter 22, it becomes even clearer. Okay. Now, so just to highlight to you, chapter 20, verse 6 is about the king. Anointed, and when you come to chapter 21, verse 1, and here it begins by talking about the king shall have joy in your strength, right? And in your salvation, how greatly shall he rejoice. Now, I guess most probably here he is talking about himself, right? He's talking about himself. Now, I think, verse 2, it says that God has given him his heart's desire, and God has not withholden, the request of his lips. All right. Now, so I think, again, when you look at the actual accounts on David's life, and we can see that, each time when he prayed to God, and God did not fail him, all right, God would answer him, all right. No, so it's like, his heart desire, God would give, and also whatever he requested, God would answer as well. Okay. Now, we look at verse 3. Now, I think verse 3 through verse 7 is more like, how can I say, an answers to verse 2, what kind of heart desire or what kind of request he has asked, right? Now, I guess heart desire and, requests are almost identical, okay? Now, just to highlight to you, for example, in verse 4, he asked life from you, meaning the king asked life from you and you gave it to him, length of days forever and ever. All right, that's the request, okay? It's like granted, okay? Now, okay, we drop down to verse 7 first, and because here it again mentioned what? The king. And for the king, trust in the Lord, and through the mercy of the Most High, he shall not be moved. All right. Now, so that's why this section is all about King David himself. But it's like, in a way, he want to to, I would say, hide his identity. He didn't want to be known. All right. Okay. So when he prayed to God, yeah, God would meet him with the blessings of goodness, and set the crowns of pure gold upon his head, meaning God actually is the one who made him the king of Israel. Like he recognized that. Okay. Now, I think this is, we said, on the day of his coronation, right? And you see that he did not violate against the commandments of God. Now you say, why do you say that? Because when you look at the day of coronation, some people despise him, but he didn't do anything about it. It's like he did not take revenge or whatever. I'm the king. How could you show this kind of attitude to me? Okay, now just let me find that passage, and so that you can understand better. Where is it? Okay, we the guy, what is it? Just give me a minute. There are too many passages here. Okay, I want you to read chapter. We can read chapter 2. Okay, now verse 4. Yeah? Verse 4. And now we know that here David was anointed as the king of Judah. All right. Now verse 4. Then the men of Judah came there they anointed David king over the house of Judah, and they told David, saying, the men of Jabesh Gilead were the ones who buried Saul. Right. So David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, you are blessed of the Lord, for you have shown his kindness to the Lord, to your Lord, to Saul, and have buried him. Now, he's the guy who persecuted him. He said, on the day of his coronation, when someone told him about his enemy, how his enemy were buried. Okay, now, what was the response of David? You are blessed of the Lord. How many of us can do that? You get what I'm saying? I think if we were king, King David, we should just forget it. Please get out of my way, man. Can you not see what is happening here? What occasion is this? Why are you telling me all this? Okay, and he deserved to die, that kind of thing. Right? But you see that he was so peaceful, unbelievable. He was a peaceful person. Now, I also want you to read 2 Samuel chapter 4. Chapter 4. Now, when someone told me, saying, look, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good news, I arrested him and had him executed in Ziklag, the one who thought I would give him a reward for his news. Right? Now, so you find that David was a very upright person. Right? He would not rejoice over the fact that because King Saul had died. All right. Now, so this is David. Right? This is David. Okay. Now, all right. Now, coming back to Psalms chapter 21. That's why I have been saying to you, you need to read, the story of David, and you have to read them. Obviously it covers many pages of the scriptures, but you have to read it very carefully to understand. Okay, now we come back here to chapter 21. All right. Here it says he asked life from you and you gave it to him. Right? Length of days forever and ever. Now it's not just about his physical life being protected. I guess also God has been with him throughout, his life. Okay, his life. Now, verse 5, his glory is great in your salvation, honor and majesty you have placed upon him. For you have made him most blessed forever. You have made him exceedingly glad with your presence. Now, so you find that, when David talks about being blessed, it's not about wealth, it's not about material gain, it's about God's salvation, and it's about his presence, God's presence. Okay, now, so that's why the chapter is so unique, and he was able to be satisfied by the fact that God was with him. Okay, now, verse 7, for the king trusts in the Lord, and through the mercy of the Most High, he shall not be moved. Okay, now, so God blessed David in this manner because David truly trusts in the Lord. Okay, and in this way, he shall never be moved, regardless. Okay? That's the idea. Okay. Now we read on, from verse 8 to verse 13. Your hand will find all your enemies. Your right hand will find those who hate you. You shall make them as a fiery oven in the time of your anger. The Lord shall swallow them up in his wrath, and the fire shall devour them. Their offspring you shall destroy from the earth, and their descendants from among the sons of men. For they intended evil against you, they devised a plot which they are not able to perform. Therefore you will make them turn their back, you will make ready your arrows on your string towards their face. Now, so, in from verse 8 onwards, it talks about, David talks about God fighting his own enemies, right? How God has used his own strength, to fight against those who hate him. Okay, now I think David is making this very clear, not only to his enemies, but also to his people, and most importantly to himself. I guess the idea is that he must not become an enemy of the Lord. Okay, that's the main thing, because in his great wrath, God would devour his enemies. So no one can actually go free from from God. Right now, I think verse 11, it tells us about the evil intent of his enemies. Right now, they devise a plot which they are not able to perform. I would look at it, again, in the context of David in his life. You see that when Saul tried to plot against him, and what happened? He was not able to carry it out, to perform it, to carry it out, because God was always by the side of David, to save him. Now, but here he said, they intended evil against you, meaning against God. But that if anyone goes against, a child of God, or goes against the I said workers of the Lord, is equal to going against God. Or amounts to, or is tantamounts to fighting against God. Now, I think this is quite reassuring. It's quite encouraging. Because anyone who fights against us is like fighting against God. But we have to make sure that we remain in Him. All right. So if we are in Him, then obviously anyone who fights against us would amounts to fighting against God. But on the contrary, if we depart from Him, we stay outside the boundaries of His principle, then we would become God's enemies ourselves. Yeah, would become God's targets of attack, or God's punishment. Okay. Now, so you find that this is the experience of David. Yeah, no one can go against the Lord, right? No one can actually, right? Now, so verse 13, be exalted, O Lord, in your own strength. We will sing and praise your power, right? To sing and praise your power. Okay, now we move on here to verse 22. It's quite a long chapter. Yeah. Now, I just want to bring out some highlights to you first. Now, this chapter, yeah, is used on Jesus Christ, or this chapter contains the prophecy concerning Jesus Christ. All right. Now, just want to how can I say the highlight to you first? Yeah. Now, I want you to look at, for example, verse 16. Yeah, verse 16. Okay, verse 16. For dogs have surrounded me, the congregation of the wicked has enclosed me. They pierce my hands and what? And my feet. Okay. Now, just want you to look at Matthew chapter 27. Okay, I think we need to read until verse 18. Okay, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast what? They cast a lot. Yeah, cast lot. Now, when you look at Matthew chapter 27, verse 35, and this is exactly what they have done, right? Okay, now so it's like it fulfilled, on Jesus Christ. Yeah, fulfilled on Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay. Now, so this is a prophecy concerning Jesus Christ. All right. Now, this is one of the highlights that you can look at. Now, the other thing is, this chapter is written in quite a unique way, or is worded in quite a unique way. Now, I want you to read verse 21, for example. Just turn your attention to verse 21 for now. Save me from the lion's mouth and from the horns of the wild oxen. You have answered me. Now, the point is, if this is a prophecy about Jesus, did God actually answer him? Why is it that here it says, you have answered me? Okay, this is quite a unique point that I guess you need to think about more carefully. Now, in what way do you think that God has answered him? Okay, now when you look at verse 22 onward, there is a complete change of scenes. From being persecuted, now is like talking about declaring, God's name to his brethren, right? Which we know this is also used in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 12, right? Now, and we understand that this is only done after the victory is won. Okay, victory is won. Now, so that's why I said this psalm is quite unique. It's written in a very unique manner, right? Okay. We shall go through the chapter. Yeah. All right. Now, I would say the first section is from 1. Okay, 1 to 5, and then okay, put it this way. 1 to 11, yeah, first section, and then 12 to 21, and then 22 all the way down to verse 31. It's easier this way, okay? Now, 1 to 11. Now, even in each section, you can further divide, the section into smaller sections. Okay. Now, you find that verse 1 actually is what Jesus did, yeah, when he was on the cross. Is it not true? All right. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? And from the words of my groaning. And this is recorded in Matthew 27, verse 46, and Mark, 15, verse 34. So when Jesus was about to die, and that he cried out to God. All right. Now, so you find that whatever is written of David can also be applied, to Jesus Christ. Or we said, the Psalms written by David, or in fact, the Psalms in the book of Psalms actually are prophetic in nature. We have mentioned this so many times already. Okay. Now, so in the time of David, then obviously, he cried out to God. Yeah, he said, God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from me? Now, so you find that in verse 2, obviously, we don't see this in the life of Jesus. Jesus did not cry in the daytime, all right? That kind of thing. And Jesus did not cry very often. Only a very few occasions that he cried. Okay? Now, he said, oh, my Lord, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear, and in the night season, and am not silent. Okay, now, yes, we know that God has been protecting him, but there are occasions you find that when he cried out to the Lord in his Psalms, he said that God did not listen. But God did not give him to the hands of his enemies. All right, now, like what we have read in First Samuel. Okay, God protected him throughout. Okay. Okay. Now, when you look at our situation, our situation today, all right. Now you find that it is to be honest. Do you not find that it's like God has forsaken us at times? Okay. Now, for David, God has forsaken him. If we said that this happened after he sinned, then we understand because he has sinned. Now, if this happened, after the demon has entered into Saul, we know that that was a testing moment, from God to King David, right? Now, so you find that obviously it's so trying, it's difficult for him, to stand by himself, right? Now, I would believe in this. This psalm, since it talks about Jesus, and it also talks about the church. Okay, I think it will come a time that we'll feel that it's like God has forsaken us. I think we can see this in many of the prophetic books. All right. Okay. Now we look at verse 3. But you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our father trusted in you, they trusted and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. Okay, now it's like saying about what God has done in history, his deeds and his power and his deliverance can clearly be seen in history. Now it's like saying that what happened now? It seems that God, does not seem to care anymore, right? That kind of thing, all right? Now, so I guess, David himself must have experienced this, yeah? Now, I think when you look at our life today, I guess, at times we also feel that God is so far away from us, okay? Now, when you come to verse 6 here, and this is how David looked at himself at the time. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of man and despised by the people. I guess this is quite pitiful. When I think the idea of being a worm, I think is mentioned, in Job as well, is it? And in Isaiah as well. The other day we did it in Isaiah. So Jacob said he is a worm. He's a worm. Okay. Now, when he said here in this context, a worm is useless. Is despised. He became a reproach of men. Now, when you come back to verse 7, it's like here, it also applies to Jesus. Those who see me, ridicule me, they shoot up the lips, they shake the head, saying, he trusted in the Lord, let him rescue him, let him deliver him, sin he delights in him. Now, we find that this occurred in Jesus. Is it also? I tell you what, if you want to know this chapter better, you need to do a chart. By that I mean, all the prophecies in this chapter that have transpired on Jesus, then you should pair them together, with the gospel. Do you get what I'm saying? And in this way, you can see a very clear, how can I say, prophetic structure about Jesus Christ. Okay, which part of the prophecy, actually applies to Jesus. Okay. Now, I think it's good. If you have time, then please do it. Okay. Now, I think I have not given you exercise to do. Perhaps now for this week, you can do that. Right. Now, all the prophecies in this chapter concerning Jesus Christ, please list them out one by one, and then compare with the gospel. With the gospel, the four gospel. Okay. Now, we look at verse 9 to verse 11. Now, here is saying about how God has saved, obviously, David, and because you are he who took me out of the womb, you made me trust while my mother's breast. Okay. Now, it's like, God has been by his side throughout from birth, has never cast him away, right? So it's like urging God, not to be far away from him, or not to be far away from him. And because trouble is near, or there is none to help. Okay, so I think by looking at this verse, his reliance on God is very strong, because at this juncture, he realized that he could not do anything about his enemy, right? And he found that he was so hopeless and also useless. That's why he said he was a worm. Okay, that's the idea. I think like sufferings or persecution, or we said unfair treatment, would really lower a person down, in a good way, and so that the person concerned can come to the realization that his survival hinges on the protection of God and the sustenance of the Lord. All right. So without God, none of us can survive, to be honest. All right. Now, when you look at verse 12 onwards, verse 12, it talks about how these bulls have surrounded him, right? And bulls of Bashan have encircled him. Now, so it's like they gave at him with their mouth, like a raging and rolling lion. Okay. Now, so I think the writer here, David, using this wild beast to depict the ferocity of the enemies, all right, how fearsome they have been towards the people of God, in particular when Jesus Christ was in this world, and how he suffered, the extreme, we said, brutality, of the people. They wanted to put him away, They were even willing to release someone who has committed, a capital crime. Now it's like saying that Jesus is a much worse off, how can I say, a sinner, than what? Than the one who has committed a capital crime. All right. Okay. Now, in verse 14, it says, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. Okay, out of joint. Yeah. My heart is like wax; it has melted within me. Now, within me, if you look at verse 14, the small letters, what does it say? In the midst of my bowels. Huh? Now, so I don't know how you describe this. It's like it's going to be passed out very quickly. Like that kind of meaning here attached. Now, here it says, and I guess, this can be seen in the Gospel of John as well. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue clings to my jaw. You have brought me to the dust of death. Okay. Now, so you find that, whatever David has gone through, some of his life experiences, are like a kind of prefiguration to the suffering that Jesus would go through when he came to this world. All right, he came to this world. Now, so the dogs. Now, when you talk about dogs surrounding him, the dogs here represents again. When you talk about dogs, who are the dogs, right? I guess we can look at this. Look at a few examples, right? We start by looking at Second Peter, isn't it? The swine thing that who after they have been cleansed would go back to the soil again. Okay. All right. Now, verse 22 of chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse 22. Now, this is a citation from Proverbs chapter 26, verse 11. But it has happened to them according to the true Proverbs. The dog returns to its own vomit, and a soul having washed to her wallowing in the mire. Okay, now, meaning this refers to those who, have known the way of righteousness and having known it to turn from the holy commandments delivered to them. We said the backsliders, right? Now, or we can say that it refers to the apostate, right? Apostate, backslider, and so they are called a dog, right? A dog, yeah. Now, if you turn to the Galatians, we turn to the book of Galatians. We look at chapter 1, yeah? No, not chapter 1. Let me see. Philippians, sorry, not Galatians, Philippians 3. Okay, now verse 2 it says, beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the mutilation. Okay, now, so dogs here refers to those who refers to the evil workers. Now, the evil workers in the context of Philippians are those who emphasize on circumcision for salvation, those who did not change their mind, refuse to change their mind. Right? Those who refuse to change their mind. Okay. Okay. Now, so talking about circumcision, although the church had come to a conclusion, that what circumcision is not needed for salvation, and find that they were very insistent. Okay, they kept pursuing, the course of championing the idea of saving through the law of Moses. Okay, that's the dogs. Okay, you see now. Now with this, yeah, we come back to Psalms chapter 22. 22. Okay, now you find that we see that those who have lost their righteousness, who have gone back to their old ways, and then those who follow wrong teachings, right? And these people surrounded Jesus, yeah, and the congregation of the wicked enclosed him. Now, when you look at the situation at the time of Jesus, this is very true, because the council people did not understand, the law of Moses well. And that's why in their own mind, they have their own notion and conception about the Savior who would to come into the world. And as a result, because of their misconception, the misunderstanding of the word of God, or they have misconstrued the word of God, and they ended up persecuting Jesus Christ. All right, that's why you find it here. It said, "They pierced my hands and my feet." So the lesson here is that Jesus died on account, obviously, of our sin, but we see that he died for a good cause. Okay. Now when you look at the prophets in the time of the Old Testament, they suffered almost the same fate, because they were asked to go and preach warnings, to the sinful kings. For example, what happened? They were executed in return. All right. Now, when you look at the New Testament scriptures, it's almost identical, and how the apostates, those who have stray away from the right path of salvation, persecuted, those who upheld the truth. Okay, it's always the case, and it doesn't go away. It's like we say, history repeats itself all the time. Okay, now, okay, now, verse 19. Sorry, we come back to chapter 22. He said, "I can count all my bones," verse 17. "They look and stare at me. They divide the garments among them, and for my clothing, they cast load." Right? Now, this is like a kind of humiliation. Humiliation is like, like trying to rejoice, we said, at the expense of Christ's suffering when he was on the cross. All right. It's like saying that they didn't care too much about his suffering. What he cared about is, their interest, playing like with the clothing of Jesus Christ here. Now, obviously, this is the fulfillment of the prophecy of David. Okay, of David. Now, you find that the prophecy here is in great detail, meaning that the suffering of Jesus Christ was well known even before the actual occurrence of the sufferings. Yeah, so it has been known by God long ago. Okay, now verse 19 to verse 21. Now, "But you, O Lord, do not be far from me. O my strength, hasten to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life, from the power of the dogs. Save me from the lion's mouth and from the horns of the wild oxen." Right? Now, the wild oxen here obviously are the bulls of Bashan. Right? The dogs here obviously refers to verse, what is that? 16. And the lions refers to verse 13. Right? You see now? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So all these evil people surrounded Jesus Christ. Now, I guess, when Paul was doing his work as well, you can see how all those who opposed him, those who opposed the truth, had surrounded him as well, right? It's like he became public enemies number one, or number one public enemy, right? That kind of thing. Okay, now I just want you to come back to my question. You have answered me. How did God answer him? Okay, let's look at Peter. Let's look at David's case first. How did God answer David? How did God answer David? Yeah, he did cry out to the Lord. Yeah, he did cry out to the Lord. Okay, now I guess you have to understand this. Okay, I just want you to look at a chapter, right? A chapter. All right, this one is written by David, when he was captured by the Philistine in Gath. Right, it's like at the point of death already. Okay, now we read chapter 56. Psalms chapter 56. Okay, we read verse 9, yeah, verse 9. Now, when I cried out to you, then my enemies will turn back. This I know because God is for me, okay? Now, you see that this is the experience of David, all right? He knew that, unless God has done something to help him, he would be doomed. Okay? You know what I'm saying? But again, when you read the stories of David, you find that God was there to help him. God did not give him into the hands of his enemy. You remember that verse I told you? And that is the key verse, all right? That's the key verse. God did not give. Okay. So now, when you look at in our in terms of Jesus Christ, yeah, how did God answer him? He prayed to God, isn't it? Because he knew that he would be killed. How did God answer him? Anyone? I guess it's important, because we always have the conception that, when we cry out to God, and God will fulfill our wish. Yeah, God will grant, our prayer according to how, we want the situation to be resolved, for example. Yeah. Okay. Now, my question is, did God ever answer Jesus? Anyone? How did he answer Jesus? Okay, now I want you to look at the answer. Probably is in the Gospel of Luke. Yeah. Okay, now the most famous prayer that Jesus offered is the prayer in Gethsemane. All right. Now, but we see that in Matthew and Mark, the two Gospels do not talk much about it. All right. Now, I think when you read Luke, they give a very good account of that. All right. Now, I want you to read, where is it? Chapter 22. Yeah? Chapter 22. Okay, we can look at from verse 39. Okay. Now read from verse 42. Okay, drop down to 42, saying, Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Now, the answer is this, yeah, it's in verse 43. Then an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him. That's the answer from God. Now, what exactly does it mean to us? It means that God strengthened him to fulfill God's will. Because in the first place, when he prayed in accordance to the will of God. Now, so, difficult it may seem, yeah, but Jesus was willing to go through it. All right. in accordance to the will of God. I think that is the key idea. Right now, so in our service to the Lord, sometimes we see that people are surrounding us, okay, or we're faced with difficulties. What are we going to do? We cried out to the Lord. Right now, the important thing is not to achieve our own will, but to achieve God's will with the strengthening from God. That is the main thing. Okay, now, so in this way, we can safely, claim that, God has answered our prayer. But we know that this is not according to our will, but according to the will of God. Okay. Now, now I want to extend it still further. When you look at the church today, the church today. Now we find that at times the church is surrounded, also by falsehood, by false teachers. Now, what are we going to do? All right, we cried out to God. Okay, now, so for God to answer us, it means that we must have the strength to speak the truth. That is how God will answer us. All right, today, if we just pray to God, but without us telling the truth and declaring what the truth is, then what happened? It means that we have not been strengthened. And we have not prayed in such a way that God is happy to answer us. You get what I'm saying? Basically, to answer is to, He has answered us now we are able to fulfill His will through His power. Through His power. Okay, now I want to move on now, to verse 22 to verse 31. And because this section here is about declaring, the name of God to His brethren. Now, I just want you to look at verse 22 first, 22 to 24 actually, 22 to 24. Now, we know that this is also mentioned in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 12. Now, I want you to quickly turn to Hebrews chapter 2, verse 12, and to look at the context. Okay. Now, verse 11, for both he who sanctifies and those who are being sanctified are all of one, for which reason he is not ashamed to call them brethren, saying, I will declare your name to my brethren. In the midst of the assembly, I will sing praise to you. Now, you know that this happened after Jesus Christ has become victorious, because, he was made perfect, right? And he is the captain of our salvation, perfect through suffering. That's in verse 10. Okay. Now that's why he is qualified, to declare what the name of God. You understand what I'm saying now? That's the context, Okay. Now for David, if you look at David, and because David was willing to submit to God fully, and in the cause of being pursued after by King Saul, even his own son, he did not sin. And that's why he is, like, in a way, qualified to declare. Okay? Now, particularly after God has answered us, meaning after God has strengthened us. Now, today, when you look at our ministry work for God, is the same. It's exactly the same. Okay? In times of difficulty, in time of trouble, as long as we are willing to fulfill God's will in a very meek and humble manner, through the strengthening of God, then we are what? We are qualified to declare what? God's name to our brethren. Right? Now you find that to declare God's name to our brethren is not just a simple task, walk on the pulpit and stand on the pulpit and start telling people about who Jesus is. Yes, that is important. But in time of trial, we have to make sure that we are victorious. If we are not victorious, then we are not qualified. You may still go out to the pulpit to preach, but God may not recognize what you are saying. Okay, so your request must first be answered by God. Meaning you must be strengthened by God to do His will first. Then you can declare. Okay, can you see the how can I say? The connections, right? The connection. Okay. Now, verse 23, you who fear the Lord, praise Him, and You descendant of Jacob, glorify him and fear him, all you offspring of Israel. Now, when we first read this verse, it seems that whatever came out from someone whose prayer has been answered, meaning someone, who was willing to suffer in order to accomplish the will of God, would always bring out the fear of the Lord in the congregation, in the hearts of the listeners. Today, we want to bring out this fear of God in the hearts of the listeners, not by the volume of our voice, but rather by our submission to the will of God. When we do that, we are given power. We are given power, okay? Now, so verse 24, for he has not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, nor has he hidden his face from him. But when he cried to him, he heard. Okay. Now, so you find that, it's like in the process of declaring, the message of God, we will constantly be afflicted. Right? Now, so just like Jesus, even when he was on the cross, he was bearing the sin of the people that did not stop mocking him or whatever. Even after he died, they still want to pierce him to make sure that he's dead. And so that, obviously that is also a fulfillment of the scripture, so that his feet will not be broken. Okay. Now, so I guess from here is so important, for us to understand as well. Yes, declaring is good, but constant affliction will follow as well. Just like the apostle, when they preach the gospel, you find that persecution will continue to, if I can put it this way, would chase after them, right? Would not want to allow them to go free, that kind of thing. Okay, I think we end here, right, up to verse 24, right? It's a bit slow.